Yes, it works. Yeah, you can share.
Is it
Thank
now?
you. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you. I'll clear.
Okay. Sorry for the late start. All right. I want to talk about learning from videos, playing forwards, backwards, fast, and slow. And this is a number of people. I'll mention them as we go on. Okay. Here, one of the very first times, one of the very first things that people saw when they saw something backwards. Film from 1896. Before that time, people couldn't watch time go backwards, but then when we had film recording technology, we could things backwards. And the question, the computer vision question wanted to address was how video is running forwards or backwards. So first of all, why do we care about this question? So first of all, we just think it's a neat problem. You know, what is it about a motion that tells you going the wrong way? And when can you tell that it's going the wrong way, and when can you not? It tells you about the visual world that we live in. It forces you to think about process for motion. You know, how humans move. What is it about human motion that lets you see looks wrong when it's and here's one that would be important. You know, if you train a system to tell whether something's going forwards, do you think it's low-level cues that tell you on, or will it be high-level cues? Will you figure out that it's going backwards because you see a person walking backwards? Because low-level cue. And so here's an example. And again, just because this is a workshop, let me not just tell you about the work, but tell you about how the work was different than how we were going to be. I thought that it would be low-level cues that would let us know if it's playing forwards. You would, you know, see when someone steps, their flesh bounces a little and oscillates and then decays. From that oscillation, and tell that it was going forwards as opposed to back. If it went the other way, you could tell it was going backwards. So I thought training a system to identify videos going backwards would a cornucopia of hidden low-level signals that would reveal the arrow of time. Turns out that wasn't the case. It turns out it's really high-level things that offer the cues. So some of these videos. So here's a video going forwards, of course, we can see that. Here's a video of a high-level effect backwards, and a way that they're going backwards. And here's the same video played in different directions. The child going forward, the child going backwards. So the game is, let's input these short sequences and train a system to tell us whether it's going forward or backwards. And how is that going to benefit us? Well, if it really is a high-level thing, it will force the system to learn these high-level effects. And maybe that will help us develop activity recognition. And then in addition, as I mentioned, especially the senior members of the team just really love this problem. It's just a kind of a nice thing. It's asking really, how does the arrow of time, how does causality manifest itself visually? So the ones I showed there were high-level things. Here's some kind of low-level things that also reveal the arrow of time. Here's water flowing down. When you see water flowing up, that's a clue that time's going backwards. Here's another one. The smoke behaves in a certain way. You know, the entropy increases over time. It doesn't decrease. Here's a skier, and again, a skier going backwards. This one's quite unusual, but again, you can tell the arrow of time. And smoke billows in a characteristic way forwards as opposed to backwards. Sometimes, we should point out, you just can't tell if something's going forward or backwards. So what do you think on this? Forwards or backwards? Well, we just don't really know. Here it is played in the reverse. I actually forget which one is the forward version. And here's another one. Sometimes repetitive actions involving people are very hard to tell. So if we develop a system to tell if video is going forwards or backwards, we don't expect 100% correct classification, and we'll see that. Let's talk a little about related work. So Andrew Zisserman and I have been kind of delighted with this problem for a while now. And he and I collaborated, along with others that are shown here, on a pre-neural network version of addressing this problem in 2014. And it worked okay, but then recently we said, let's revisit it using modern CNN techniques and see how much better we can do. So that's what this work I'm going to tell you about is. The second one down, second blue row, there are a number of papers on related topics, but not exactly the same, on how to tell whether a set of images are how to put them into order. And these are often done in the context of action recognition. So here's the plan. We want to get some video clips playing forwards and get negative training examples of video clips playing backwards, and have a loss to train a network to detect when they're going forwards and when they're going backwards. This is the architecture that we used. We made a decision right away to work with motion rather than image data. So the input was video, of course, but then immediately we calculated optical flow everywhere and inputted the optical flow to a VGG-like network, and to take these stacks of 20 frames were our inputs, and we put them into these image analyzing networks, concatenated them over many frames, and used pooling to eventually have the final layer output a decision of the video playing either forwards or backwards. So the thing that took the most time in the research was eliminating the ways that the neural network could cheat. And so, of course, neural networks, they're just asked to solve the problem. They're not asked to solve it in the way we want the network to solve the problem. And so if there are residual hints left inside the video that don't relate to the video itself, the network may well use those hints. And this happens in context of other research as well. My colleague Alyosha Efros published a paper on that talked about how chromatic aberration was sort of sneakily used by the network in a way that they hadn't anticipated. There's a classic example of an early success in identifying tanks using neural networks. Turned out to be simply whether the network would identify whether the image was bright or not bright. You can follow that web page to see a detailed discussion of that. And indeed, we ran into these types of problems right away. So we took the UCF 101 actions data set and broke it into training and testing, reversed half of them to give us the negative labels. And we had an accuracy of 98%. Wow, we're just doing great. And I thought, wait a minute, maybe we're doing too well. So we had to go kind of like peeling an onion. We had to go layer by layer to remove these artifactual cues that the neural network was using. So in many of the videos, there was a black frame along the top from recropping or whatever. And it turns out they weren't purely black, and it turns out the information in there was being used by the network to decide whether the video is playing forward or backwards. So when we zeroed out those black bars at the top of some of the videos, performance dropped by 10%. So, okay, that's good, that's progress. We don't want to be basing our decision based on artifactual video coding artifacts. Here's another one that took us a while to figure out. There are certain cinematic conventions that are used. For example, camera zooming in. Typically, the photographer zooms in on a subject and they much less often zoom out from a subject. So here's, let's see. Here's an example. This is a typical photographic convention that's followed. Here's another one. So all the network has to do for these cases is to just develop a zoom detector and assume that if you zoom, you're going forwards. Also, there's another convention of taking a subject and then following it down to the ground. That often happens. And so this camera motion is also very typical, and again provided cues as to what the direction of time is. And most of the videos in the database had camera motion. So let's stabilize all the videos that we can. And first of all, that forced us to toss out many of the videos because some we couldn't stabilize, but some we could, like, so here's the original with some camera motion. And here it is after stabilization. And again, when we stabilized, so first we removed the black stripe, then we stabilized, performance dropped another 10%. Good, you know, we're removing these artifactual cues. There's another artifactual cue that we thought for sure was going to be a problem, and that's the video codec. So the video compression system. So H.264 is very asymmetric in time, and we thought surely that might cause a problem. So we tested whether it did or not with whether our network exploited that or not. So we took a set of videos that we were sure had no compression in them. They were frame by frame encoded with so-called MJPEG. And then based on this data set, we ourselves encoded the videos with different flavors of H.264 encoding, and then trained and tested on all possible combinations of those in this bottom right corner here. And we found no variation in performance. So our network anyway was not exploiting any cues that it might have, we were concerned it would exploit with this type of encoding. And this then opened up a big treasure trove of videos for us to be able to train on. Now, anything that we find on YouTube or Flickr that was H.264 encoded, we could then add to our data set to train at a very large scale and develop an improved error of time detection. So then here now is our pipeline that we finally developed after many false starts of how to take videos at scale and use them as inputs to our training algorithm. We put the video in, we removed camera motion. It was okay to use codec compression, and we removed the black stripes, and that gave us our training set. So we had this led us to have two large-scale training sets, Flickr 150K videos were an input, and we took only somewhat of a subset of those, but a substantial subset after we removed black stripes and stabilized the ones that we could. And also the kinetics, again, we did the same thing, and we had a somewhat smaller set than the original, but large enough to be large scale for us. So then we trained it, and we obtained these results. So let me explain this table. Reference 14 is the pre-neural network arrow of time work that we had done before. And in that context, we developed a small arrow of time data set. It was too small for us to train our neural network algorithm on. And, but nonetheless, when we trained on either of these two, we got performance that was comparable to what we had training and testing on the same data set. And for comparison, humans on that data set were correct 93% of the time. The machines were correct about 82, 83% of the time. But the big change was with these large-scale data sets. When we took the old algorithm and trained them on the large-scale data sets, performance fell a little bit, but these were the trained correct detections. But when we were able to train on our large-scale data sets, we got much better performance, around approximately 80% correct assessment. And this is very close to the humans' correct assessment on this. Now, why are humans doing so badly, you might say? They're only allowed to see 20 frames in succession. And so that's why the performance wasn't higher for humans. And as I pointed out, sometimes you can't really tell whether a video is going forwards or backwards. So we're excited about this. We can do as well as humans. We can do 80% correct on this large scale if we allow ourselves to train on this large scale video data set. And so now let's look at how this thing does. We can visualize what parts of the video are important for the assessment. And so here are some of those. You can see it's honing in on the person walking or the people walking. And many times where there are waterfalls and the like, it uses the water as a cue to decide what is a forward arrow of time. There's some video clips where the assessment wasn't always in the same direction for all parts of the clip. So we call these low purity clips. And so red means thought to be forward in time, and blue means thought to be backwards in time. So, okay, these are reversed video clips, and you can see what parts are deciding that are causing the system to decide that we went backwards. So here, the waterfall is flowing up, and that was used to decide that this is backwards. Same with the stream, and same with this waterfall here. And people walking are a strong cue as well. So it's the same story. These are played backwards. What parts of the scene allow the system to know they're being played backwards? Well, it's the part where you have people moving in this funny way. So what's this telling us? It's telling us that this self-supervised task of deciding if a video is playing forward or backward, which you can do without any external labeling, is forcing the system to learn how people move. Well, that's pretty exciting. This is a nice kind of unsupervised method to force the system to learn these rather high-level concepts. How do people normally walk? And we can ask questions like, we can show the system videos of people talking and ask, what words do people say that are easiest to tell that are proper or improperly forward in time? So the easiest words to assess the direction of time are warning, weekend, today, morning, and build. If you say those and just look at the lips, those are the easiest ones to correctly assess the direction of time. And the hardest ones are system, national, global, George, and enough. So George in particular, you can see you can kind of hear it to be almost a palindrome. And you can do the same thing with human actions. So if you put in a data set of labeled human actions, we can assess what activities are easiest for our system to tell the direction of time with. And the top three were roller skating, I guess where the person always becomes larger, passing a football in American football, and riding a mule. And the most difficult ones to assess what the direction of time is are brush painting, doing nails, and shining shoes. Okay. So how is this useful? Well, one way, as I alluded to before, is you can use this as a pre-training to improve activity recognition. So you can pre-train an activity recognition network on labeled ImageNet or on the arrow of time. And if you do the pre-training with the arrow of time data set, you actually get better final performance in activity recognition than you do if you pre-train with these labeled ImageNet labels. So that's exciting. And another is in films, there are many many times in films where the film is actually run backwards as a way of perhaps making it safer for the actors or other effects that they want. And we can find these reversed clips using our methods. Let me just show you some of these. So we can detect those. And here's the clip from that sequence, and the blue is showing where the algorithm thought the time was going backwards. And it correctly finds those. Here are some other examples. We put together a data set of these reversed film clips, and it detects them with 76% correct accuracy, and humans detect them with about 80% accuracy. There's an obvious case where you'd want to have safety considerations. Okay. So in summary, we've made an algorithm that can tell the direction of time in short clips, 20 frames, as well as humans can, which is about 81% correct. It took a lot of time and care to remove cues that let the algorithm cheat and solve the problem without actually analyzing the video content, but we've solved that problem, we think. We've removed those cues. And if you force a network to find the direction of time, you force it to have a somewhat high-level interpretation of what's going on in the video sequence. Okay, let's see. Let me go to the next. There's a next half talk about looking at things fast and slow. I should ask, are there questions now about this part?
Okay, so does anyone have questions for first part? I think there is already one question. So the question from Hao-Ye. So he asked when the camera motion is stabilized, while your test accuracy still drops about 10%.
Right. So because when we stabilize the camera motion, then we remove these cues that are resulting from consistent photographic conventions. So oftentimes photographers want to zoom in over time. And so if you simply look at detect camera zooming in and you want to guess the direction of time, you should always guess that if it zooms in, time's going forward, and if it zooms out, time's going backwards. It won't always be correct, but it will help you. And we didn't want to let the algorithm take advantage of that cue.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can continue to the, no, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, was wondering if you have compared your model, you took optical flow as input, right, and then trained the model. Was wondering if you took the raw visual inputs as well and compared it with how it works.
Right. No, we didn't. But in the work I'm going to tell you about just now, where we use that approach instead. So I can talk about that briefly. But yes, okay. That's an obvious thing to do, and maybe the additional content cues would be helpful. But we didn't explore that in the other work. Thanks.
Thank you, but great work.
Thanks.
A lot of things to learn from it.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Well, let me go on to the second half because I'll be pretty short on time otherwise. Sorry. Okay. So that was forward and backwards. Now let's look at fast and slow. Okay. Again, in the spirit of a workshop, I want to tell you what we tried and what didn't work. So here's the goal we had originally, and we eventually achieved it, but not the way we thought we would. When you see a video, we can assess it looks normal. If you speed it up, it looks wrong in all sorts of ways. First of all, it sounds wrong. The audio is high pitched, and so everyone sounds like a chipmunk, but also everyone looks like a chipmunk too, because everyone moves around way too quickly. And the audio people have done a wonderful job of developing nice, robust signal processing methods that let you adjust the pitch of the audio without changing the speed. So if you speed up an audio, you can have the content playing at 2x, but the style, if you will, the way it sounds to you, playing as if it was just 1x. So let me show you an example of this. And what we want to do is come up with the analogous processing for video. We want to have a video play at 2x, but have everyone look as if they're just moving at 1x. That might make it easier to watch videos sped up. So here's me. It's a short clip where I'm congratulating the MIT EECS graduates about getting their PhDs.
Hi, I'm Bill Freeman, professor at EECS since 2001. Congratulations on graduating. I also graduated from MIT.
Okay, so that's at normal speed. If you play it at double speed without doing the audio trick, here's what you get.
Hi, I'm Bill Freeman. I'm a professor at EECS since 2001. Congratulations on graduating. I also graduated from MIT. Here's me and my wife at my graduation. Here's a picture of me chasing down our car.
Okay, so it's both visual chipmunks and it's audio chipmunks. Both the audio and the video look and sound wrong. So, but let's use the wonderful audio signal processing and see what they can do. But notice that, so the pitch will sound right now, but the video is still going to look wrong. It still looks like I'm a chipmunk, even though the audio sounds right.
ECS since 2001. Congratulations on graduating. I also graduated from MIT. Here's me and my wife at my graduation. Here's a picture of me chasing down our daughter outside the seaside. And here are pictures of my daughter growing up, from when she was at my graduation to her first day of kindergarten to her going off for a semester abroad during college. And today, by the way, she just turned 30. So my best wishes to all of you for all aspects of your futures ahead, both as a professional and person. All the best.
So what the audio people did with the sound is what we would like to do with the video. We want to play the video content so it moves at the 2x speed of the content, but have the style of motion not be this jerky thing, have the style be as it would be if it were playing at normal speed, just as the audio people have done that with the audio. So I was saying my words at 2x speed of the words, but it sounded at the proper pitch as if I was just saying it at 1x. Okay. I was going to do a Zoom demonstration of this. I guess I can still do it. Let's see. Well, I'll try it. What the heck. I'm going to stop sharing my screen briefly so you can see a larger view of me while I do this video demonstration. This is designed specifically for Zoom, okay? Here's why the approach we were wanting to do for video just cannot work. Stop sharing. And if you put me on speaker view, you should get a large enough view of this. What if I can pin my video? Okay, great. So this is telling me the speed at which my fingers should walk. Okay, if I want to increase the speed by a factor of 2, I want want to move from here to here in twice the speed. So normally it takes me 8 clicks to go from there. I want to go there in 4. There's no way I can do it without skating. If I move my legs at the 1x style, I have to skate. That was my demonstration. Okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, let me go back to sharing my screen and resume the talk. Let's see. Thank you for humoring me with that. Okay, so that didn't work. So what do we do? Well, we went to plan B. Let's not try to do the signal processing approach that the audio engineers were successful at. Instead, let's try a different approach. Let's try to identify what parts of a video would look bad if they were sped up and what parts would look kind of at normal speed if they're sped up. Now, you know there are going to be some of those things. If someone's just standing still, you know that if you speed that up, it won't look crazy. It'll look normal. Whereas if someone is moving quickly, it might look really terrible if it's sped up. So that's the game then. We want to have some way of identifying what parts of the video we can speed up without getting chipmunks and what parts we can't. So to do that, I have 5 minutes to tell you this. I think I can do it. We made a network called SpeedNet that identifies how fast it thinks a video is playing. And this is joint work with these people. Sergey Benaim and Ariel Afret did the heavy lifting, and all the other authors contributed. I should point out Tali Deckel made all the slides with black backgrounds, and Donglai Wei made all the slides with white backgrounds. Thank them, both of them, for that. So we want to be able to design an algorithm that can look at these videos and decide which one looks like it's too fast and which one doesn't. Here's an example. Here's an input video played at normal speed. And suppose we want to watch that at 2x. If we just do a uniform speed up, we run into parts of the video that just look horribly wrong when they're sped up like that. But if we do a non-uniform speed up, so we take the parts where they're not moving, we speed that part up, and we don't speed up the parts where they're moving quickly, then we can play the video in the same length of time. They're both sped up by a factor of 2, but the adaptive speed up looks much easier. Looks like it was done at 1x, even though the content is compressed into half the time. So let me just kind of skip over things. So this is the desire. We want video into a net and decides if it's normal or sped up. And again, we had to avoid letting the network cheat. It's very similar to the other work I just told you about. And then once we have a network that can tell if something was sped up, then we can use that as a guide to adaptively speeding up the video to compress it without it looking bad. In the interest of time, I'll skip over this. It's this network had pixels in rather than motion in, and it went into a state-of-the-art activity recognition classifier based on the work cited at the bottom there. And then we pulled out space-time features, pooled them in a way to try to force the system to be agnostic about size, and then finally a decision as to whether the video was normal speed or sped up. And then once we have this detector which says how sped up it thinks a video is, we can then use it to adaptively modify the speed. And again, as with the other work I just told you about, to solve this problem, you really have to have kind of a high-level knowledge of what's going on in the video. And so if you train a network to solve this problem, which you can do without labels, you force the network to understand something about videos and activities of people. So let's see that results. So on left is a video uniformly sped up. And again, it's visual chipmunks. It's people that are moving in a way that doesn't look natural at all. Okay, and now we do our adaptive speed up. It's not perfect, but our user studies show that people like it much better than the other one. And generally, for the examples we tested, it was really a 2-to-1 advantage. Twice as many people preferred the adaptive speed up as preferred the uniform speed up. And again, as with the arrow of time work, you could also use this, once the system is trained, then it knows something at a high level about activities, and you can use this, again, as a pre-training for activity recognition. So here's the table showing results there. The work we just talked about before, the arrow of time work, is shown there in the next to the bottom row, and it's almost the same performance. So really, it's very similar, the performance gain you get by forcing these networks to decide, is it going forward or backward? Is it going fast or slow? The ability to answer those questions forces you to have a rather high level knowledge of human motion within videos. And then this, therefore, is useful and pre-training for activity recognition. Let me skip over this. You can also use it for the representation for video retrieval as well. And again, as with the other method, you can identify what parts of the video tell you that it's sped up or not. Here's a strange video which has the left side of the screen at normal speed and the right-hand side slowed down, and we can identify that with our network. So the blue means it's thought to be playing at normal speed, and the yellow means it's thought to be slowed down. One final thing I guess I won't have time for is unpublished work. So the previous work we saw slowed down or sped up the entire video. You might also want to slow down or speed up individuals and have all the parts of the video that are associated with the individual to change speed in synchrony with that. And we've developed a method which is under review for doing just that. I want to point you to Tali Deckel's CVPR 2020 talk in the Women in Computer Vision workshop, where she went into that in depth. I think I just want to show you one example and tell you the first 2 authors are Erica Liu and Forrester Cole, and other authors as well. So here's an example, original video. These 3 kids jump in at different times. Each makes their own splash. You can see them jumping in at different times. We have a wonderful method that takes the input video and breaks it into layers and pulls into each layer the other parts of the scene which are associated with that person. So this person comes into a layer and her shadow, and this person comes in and her reflection. And if you're able to make this decomposition, then you can go back and retime each person and have the splashes associated with each kid be synchronized still with each kid. So now we're going to retime when they jump, and you'll notice that the splashes are all correct. So the splashes have been retimed as well as the individual jumps. And we're excited about this result. Just one more example. Here's some children dancing. And now we can go in and freeze a couple, and you notice that their shadows freeze as well as the people, and the occlusions work. So we're very excited about this layered neural rendering, and we think it has a number of applications for, at the very least, for retiming people within videos. And this is the set of people who worked on that paper. So in summary, I'm sorry for being 2 minutes over. I told you about the arrow of time and a system that learned to detect the arrow of time and therefore learned some high-level information about how people move. SpeedNet asks a similar question, but not the arrow of time, but the magnitude of time, like how quickly is something moving. And again, this forces the network to learn about people. And then finally, if you want to retime people adaptively, you might want to pick one person to retime and another person not to, and we're working on methods to do that as well. And so thanks again to Tali Deckel for the slides with the black backgrounds, to Dong Lai Wei for the slides with the white backgrounds, and there's some pointers to the work on the web. And I can stop sharing now and answer more questions if that makes sense, or we can go on to the next person because I'm aware we're short on time.
Okay, so that's a very interesting talk by William. So it seems we have a lot of questions. So any question first? And there are also some questions in the room talks.
Right. I apologize for the video, for the audio not being good. I just saw those. What if we test it on a ball that rolls from left to right and right to left? So that would be an example where the system, there's really no way it could get it correct. And indeed, you know, the highest performance we achieve is 80% correct performance of the estimating the error of time, and that's consistent with what people estimate also. And what about combining audio with video? Certainly if you had audio, I think audio is just a different beast, and I think audio is, I bet, is just trivial to analyze and ascertain the direction of time, because things resonate and decay, and that's such a consistent effect. I would be very surprised if it wasn't very simple to do. I haven't tried it though, I should say, but I guess I base that partly on the fact that perceptually it's so easy to tell reversed audio from forward audio, whereas there are many video clips where it's impossible to tell reversed from forward. So I suspect the problem is much, much easier in audio. Yeah. What kind of regions does the speed network look at? We haven't analyzed that as carefully. Again, people are really telltale signatures of both the direction of time and the speed of time, and so often it looks at people. Can the error of time be used to change, to detect changes of scenes? I guess, can you use the error of time work to detect scene changes? We haven't applied it to it. I mean, so we have taken the error of time trained video and used it as a pre-training for activity recognition. It might be useful as a pre-training for scene detection. I don't know, we haven't tried it.
Okay, so any other questions?
Well, thank you all. You know, it's hard to give a talk over Zoom, and I'm sure it's hard to listen to a talk over Zoom, so I apologize for the audio issues that I saw in the questions. I wasn't aware of them when I gave the talk. But thank you for your attention, and please send emails to me if you have other questions that you weren't able to get answered. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let us go forward and invite our next talk. Thanks, William, for next talk. Bye.